Carlo Marlo. I exited and built an off-grid life on a mountain in Vermont. I only need $400 a month for all my expenses. It wasn't that hard. If you know the pitfalls to avoid. So I think that's that. Thank you for sharing that. These are the kind of real world answers that people need. No, it's not necessarily easy for everybody, but the point is, and just to wrap up the exit and build conversation here before we move on to some other stories, exiting and building. I started with the topic of taxation. You could also talk about exiting and building from big tech, right? So one example would be get a de-Googled phone, get on Linux, et cetera, like that. Exiting and building from the propaganda systems that is public education. So maybe you start homeschooling your kids. Maybe you work with a local group of parents and y'all start your own homeschooling pod. And maybe y'all pool your resources to hire a tutor to teach your kids in a way that you think is most valuable to your goals, right? That's exiting and building as well. But for many of us, exiting and building is also about exiting and building in terms of physical location. So for example, I exited and builded, and it kind of sounds funny, but I exited from Texas, even though I love Texas and I still do go and visit. When the COVID insanity started in March 2020, some of you may remember, I crossed the border the first week and a half of March, right before they announced they were shutting down the border. Miriam and I came down to Mexico, and I ended up where I am right now in Morelia, Mexico, in central Mexico. And this ended up being where we've got our land and where we hold the Greater Reset, the People's Reset now in January. And it worked out for me. But that choice was made because they started talking about restricting interstate travel. And to me, even if the cage is the size of Texas, it's still a cage, right? That's always been a red line in the sand for me. Talk about restricting travel, restricting freedom of movement. And like I said earlier with the airports and facial recognition, see, because I've taken the time to write down my lines in the sand and I don't budge on them. And if you don't even know that, if you don't know like, well, what is that red line? Guess what? You're going to keep getting ran over. You're going to keep being a doormat, because you don't know where your principles are. You don't know where your line is. That's one big step to start taking. How much of this are you willing to take? Are you going to accept facial recognition if it means that you that's what's required to continue to use your bank account? Are you going to take the voluntary step right now, at least, of allowing your insurance company to use OnStar to track your every movement in the promise of getting better insurance rates? These things are happening, right? So they're going to try to both buy us off, like we saw during COVID, like, here, get a donut after you take the shot, get a free stripper, this and that. So they're going to try to bribe people. It's also going to be done through entertainment. Here's some movie passes if you do the thing we want you to do. But it's also going to be just through this sort of reward system. Again, like with the insurance companies, hey, give us access to your phone, give us access to your car and everywhere you go, and we'll give you discounts and lower rates and stuff like that. So they're going to sell this technocratic slave system to people through entertainment, through like benefits, this carrot thing. And eventually, as we saw with COVID, there'll be a stick. Oh, you don't want to take it? Now you're going to get penalized, right? So this is why it's so important for those of us who are thinking ahead to start focusing on exiting and building. Because if we don't now, my friends, it's going to be only even more difficult in the future. As I told you, I don't have relationships with certain US government agencies. I just live my life freely. I'm an independent journalist. I get paid for writing articles. I allow my lifestyle and the fact that I can work online to give me the freedom of movement to kind of navigate these systems in a way that I think has allowed me to see a little bit further of, what's potentially possible. Now, if you're a person who is living 100% like stuck at a job, 50, 60 hours a week, 401k in debt, I know that this might sound really far away, but start small. Start on the little things that you can do in your life. Again, I encourage you to download my book. I'm not trying to sell you the book. Buy it if you want, but you can download it for free at theconsciousresistance.com/how-to. I try to get as specific with guides and steps on doing this. So exit and build is about getting out of systems that don't align with your values, but it also might be about moving. Like I was saying, when we traveled around the United States in 2021, I did the activation tour. Miriam and I traveled for 60 days visiting communities all across the US during the midst of the COVID insanity. And we met people who said, I felt so alone. I felt so isolated. And then I went on freedomcells.org and I found there was other people. We started growing food together. We started organizing and they created community. And that's what's going to be necessary to thrive into the future. We have to create these parallel, alternative, counter-economic systems. Now, some people, though, they were in an area where they said, I had nobody. Everybody in my area was totally COVID crazy. I had no friends. So I went on the Freedom Cell Network and I started searching, what does it look like the next state over or a couple of cities over? And I found there was a group, just a couple hours away from me. So I decided to move my whole life and, go live in a different area where a lot of people left California and New York and came to Texas. A lot of people came from Canada, the UK, and Australia who couldn't get out anywhere else and came to Mexico because it was one of the only places in the world, I think one of two places that didn't require shots or quarantines or anything like that. That is also exiting and building. When you're looking at your current living situation and maybe you're looking around and realizing the place that I'm living is not very conducive to long-term liberty for myself and my family. So I think I'm going to consider making a move, right? So I think that's the big thing here is we really have to think about what comes in the long-term future. And I know right now things have quote unquote calmed down in this new normal, but we should not allow ourselves to think that these crazy psychopaths don't have other things up their sleeve. I mean, there's much more to come. We all seen with the climate crisis narratives. Is it going to be the bird flu? Is it going to be the fake alien invasion? Is it going to be an election false flag, economic downturn, cybercrime? It ultimately doesn't matter what the details are, slightly, because all you need to focus on is the solutions, exiting and building, getting out of these systems. Because I promise you, my friends, it doesn't matter if Donald Trump wins, quote unquote, wins the selection, or if they go with the narrative, which I got a little bit of money on that they might pull this come behind out of nowhere. RFK wins and defeats the system, and everybody believes, oh my God, we actually defeated them. If they pull that one out, we might be in for some rough times. But the point is, no matter who it is that wins, we're going to be in for some rough times, and they are not going to solve this. Because even if we were to trust that Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and RFK Jr. are genuinely good guys just out to do what they think is best for the country, even if that was true, the entire system involving intelligence networks and this, I hate the term deep state because it's been bastardized, but the shadow government, the predator class that really runs things, the pyramid of power, they will not let one individual come along and change things. We already saw this with Ron Paul back in the day. We've seen this with plenty of other people. So the answer then is to not put your faith or your time in that system, and instead just put your nose down and focus on what you can do for your family in your community. If we each do this in little pockets all around the world, we will create parallel systems, parallel structures. And I know that none of us can predict what that's going to look like. But again, if we don't start now, we're never going to get there. Instead, we're just going to keep watching each other on the internet, complaining, making memes, doing videos. And it's so sad how fucked up everything's getting. It's getting so miserable. And okay, the cage is almost done. We're nearly there, but I guess I won't do anything. I remember somebody talked about a long time ago about exiting and building and doing stuff, but well, it feels a little too late for that now. And things are scary now. Like if you think things are scary now, wait till it gets scarier later when it's even less safe to speak out, when it's even less safe to talk like this, right? This is why we need to act now. If you see what's coming, stop putting your faith in false solutions. Stop putting your faith in false heroes. All right, I think I've been ranting about this for quite some time now. I know there's a lot of good comments, and I appreciate everybody who is commenting. I do want to, one more time, remind you guys to go to theconsciousresistance.com. This is where you can see my presentations that go much deeper into this and a little bit more organized than my rambling thoughts here tonight. I've got dozens of talks going deep into the exit and build idea. In fact, probably the one that I would recommend, I just loaded to YouTube the other day, but go through this, make time. These are all on our Spotify as well. If you go to the Conscious Resistance, if you look on the website, it has the audio links there as well. You can download them. But I did this one called Exit and Build, Creating the 2030 of Your Dreams back in November 2022. And also I did 5 steps to build conscious community. That one's a good one. I did exit and build, where to start and what to avoid. Those are all good. So the point is, go to the presentations or go to the website and search exit and build, and you'll get a lot more info.
Since 2012, the Conscious Resistance Network has been an independent media organization focused on empowering individuals through education, philosophy, health, and community organizing. We work to create a world where corporate and state power do not rule over the lives of free human beings. Our motto is leading by example and helping others in their pursuit of freedom. Visit theconsciousresistance.com to find our articles, documentaries, interviews, podcasts, books, and more. Remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free.